I think the greatest professional lesson that I've learned in the 25 years since I'm working full time is that you are not always right and you
Yeah.
don't know everything. And that sometimes you just gotta listen and just learn. That's yeah, certainly important.
You're listening to the Building Better Futures podcast, where innovation meets inspiration. In each episode, host Eric Hurani journeys alongside notable thought leaders who are shaping the future, cultivating exceptional work cultures, and nurturing the next generation of trailblazers. We aim to spark inspiration by engaging in dialogue with leaders from groundbreaking companies, innovative projects, and exceptional teams. Our goal is to empower individuals to positively impact those around them and leave a lasting legacy of positive change in our communities and society at large. Let's dive in together and explore what it takes to build better futures, one conversation at a time.
Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Spencer Levine, president of RAL Companies and Affiliates. Hey, Spencer, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me, Eric.
No, I'm excited to do this, and I know you've done a few other podcasts. So for listeners out there, if they want to go and catch those after they listen to this one, I think they should.
Hopefully this will be better than the rest.
But so we've got a couple of questions. We'll go through later. But I always like to start the episode with some good news and gratitude. Right, it's a way to kick us off with some positivity. So I'll ask you: is there any like personal or professional good news or gratitude you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think I've adopted a real positive outlook on 26. I think 25 was one of those let's get through it years. 26 has been really focused on professional and personal growth and really making myself accountable, making others accountable. So I'm really looking forward to that. But professionally, we've been working on a deal for uh, over 2 years now that is really a very different direction for us, which is it's a municipal bond finance deal for a student housing project, and that is set to hopefully close in the next week. So that's my looking forward positivity, and we've made it this far positivity.
That's really cool. And whenever I hear you talk about your projects and the places you have to travel, I'm always like, one day I'm gonna do something as cool as Spencer does.
We go where the work is.
But so far, I do love New York City, so I can't complain too much. Where's that student housing? Or are you allowed to talk? I don't know how much you're.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually down in Sweetwater, Florida, adjacent to Florida International University. So it's been something that we got involved in late 23 and have been persevering through. And we've got a great project that's in the hopper there, and finally financing is coming through, and be off to the races in a week.
And this'll. I'm gonna kind of dive in right now, and then I will come back to the good news and gratitude because I always like to share mine. But tell me a little bit about the role that like REL plays in that, right? So, are you like the land owner and developer, or are you just a developer? Are you part of the financing team? How do you guys like? What is the play there
Yeah.
with the student?
Yeah. So, I mean, that particular project, what's really interesting is after several years of trying to make it work with traditional financing and trying to get all those things lined up and really struggling through the capital markets, not because of the project, but because of the state of the world,
Yeah.
the team made a strategic decision to pivot to a municipal bond financing um, program there about, like I said, about a year ago. And we've been working through that process. And we end up being the developer of the project. And we are an at-risk developer there. But one of the unique things about RAL is because we are a family owned and operated company that's been around for almost 46 years now. We have the flexibility to really structure these projects in very different ways. There are projects where we're just, a fee developer, third party there to assist and support and get the project done. And then there are projects where we're very much in the capital stack, part of the financing, in the equity. We're nimble enough to be able to adapt to the requirements or the needs of a particular project in order to help get them done.
I love that, and I wanted to ask you about that. So I'll share my good news and gratitude, and then we'll jump to that. Um, but my gratitude, similar to yours, is like as we are kind of embarking. on the new year, right? We'll call it 2026. We're working a lot more closely with our team and our like leadership team on having some structured goals. And I know that's something you and I have like talked about even offline, and creating like the rhythm and the cadence, and I'm trying to be better at challenging my own team. I'm very much the like rah rah positivity kind of person, and I think I need to challenge myself and my team some more. So it's kind of my gratitude to my team always. But that's my good news for the year. I'm trying to like really I think we're putting in some structure that's going to help us kind of get to the next level. So I'm
It's
excited.
exciting. It's a great framework to work with, at least to kick off the year.
You got to
Before
start, yeah.
everything before everything falls apart.
Now getting back to your last sentiment, right? You were talking about how because you're a family-owned business, you guys can be nimble, and so I want you to talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how's your philosophy compared to more like traditional developers, right? Like, where can you be more nimble or change or do something different?
Yeah, so we started in uh, like I said, for about 46 years ago. My father started the company. He's a trained architect, and we actually started as a large architectural firm. So we start from this ethos that is very much about the design, engineering, and constructability of a project. And we evolved over time instead of going right into the development game. We really, RAL as an architectural firm grew to over 100 architects at one point in the late 80s. And then there have been some strategic transition or inflection points throughout the growth of the company that had us using the education, the experience, and the relationships that we had fostered or built during those previous years to really determine what the next iteration of the company was going to be. And because we evolved and we grew out of these different skill sets and these relationships, we really still approach all of our projects not as a traditional developer would, not designing on in a pro forma, but really focusing on the constructability, the execution of the project. I always say, I think it's probably, it's one of our greatest assets, but probably also one of our greatest liabilities. We just love delivering great projects. And we really have a passion for the process and the execution. It's why there are certain project types. We work across the spectrum of project types across the country, but why there are certain project types even that I love more than others, like hospitality. I get to work in the hospitality world where I'm delivering a hotel where each person that enters that hotel is a unique impression or expression of the work that I have delivered, as compared to maybe a residential development where you get that first impression once with a resident that's living there. So it's really about the passion for us, and it sounds corny, but really that's really what we thrive on. We love the intricacies of getting projects done and delivered. It's not all about beautiful design, because the process is just as much a part of the design as the actual project is for us. And that's really how we look at these projects. As we continue to evolve, I think we've also taken, at least I know I have taken the position that the projects also, the process is great, but we can also get into projects where we can focus on doing well and good at the same time. Projects that have a deeper meaning, projects that may go to support the programs and ambitions of certain cities we work in, or go to solve for the broader domestic needs or international needs, and do something more than just deliver a building. We've spoken a lot about, even in our residential developments, it's about, again, sounds corny, but it's about delivering a lifestyle. It's not just about building a building. We often refer to our residential projects as we're, a certain number of homes. It's not apartments and it's not houses. Homes have a much deeper meaning. There's a personal connection to it. There's a true lifestyle and brand and experience that you're delivering along with that. So that's what tends to differentiate us. It's really the passion and the process that we've built over these 46 years of what we do and how we do it.
And I love that. And I don't think it's corny at all, because I guess maybe just because I know you, but when you talk about your projects, you are very passionate about them. When you talk about the company, you're very passionate about it. And I think part of that is also you and I are kind of similar as second generation. Like I might not be second generation for my company, but I'm second generation in industry. Um, and so we kind of just like grew up in this world, And when you talk about stuff like, traditional developers, sometimes we're talking more like spreadsheets, right? You pro formas. When I talk to you, it's about like, no, can this be built? Like, is this practical and will it be financially successful, right? Like, we could all make spreadsheets, do whatever we want them to do, but is it actually going to be something we deliver well? Um,
And the difference is really there's that personal connection and the responsibility of that reputation. I
Yep.
think especially being a second generation and having grown up in it and seen what a reputation means to a company, to our family, and how that becomes such a part of you. Also, going back to the process, having grown up in it, having grown up, started in an architectural firm that was responsible for also the construction and execution of their projects. Um, I love construction. I love that process of putting things together and delivering something tangible. And it's given me I now see having kids. I was really immersed in it. So I really understand it and I understand the construction and putting things together. It's hard to, to now impart that to the next generation. It's not as easy as my father made it look. Us being involved and really understanding it all.
I a whole other episode, I think there. But I also have two young kids, right? Like much younger than yours actually, but I am constantly in that struggle. Like, what did my dad do to me that like made me this way? And I hope I'm doing something to pass that down. Like
Uh,
I sometimes I just wonder like, should I have my dad just come over here and parent them a little? Maybe he'll instill it however he did it with me. But so we grew up in the right. We've both probably grown up in the business. So any like stories or lessons from I have a story I tell a lot, but it's obviously it's about you. Like a story from when you were growing up that made you either like realize something or think or like a lesson you hold to this day that like, hey, I
yeah.
remember when I was 10, right? Or 8 or 15, whatever it was.
Yeah, very much. And I think it was more of like a full childhood experience than it was a specific time. But there are two lessons that are really linked together, but they really formed me as a professional, I think, and as someone who um can uh participate and help deliver these projects. And those two things are really and there's something that I tell my kids all the time. I tell everyone in the office all the time. It comes from it was passed down to my father and then really passed down to me and my siblings. And that really is that there is something to learn from everyone on a job site. It doesn't matter if it's the laborer that's responsible for cleaning up the site or if it's the licensed architect who's going to be signing off on your GCO. There is something to learn from everyone, and take every opportunity you can to really get to know everyone in the process and really respect everyone's role in that process. And that ties to this idea of, we always say, like, leave your title at the door. We have no ego in how we do things. And we're really on projects. It can't happen in a vacuum. It happens because all of these different voices and all of these different professionals or tradespeople are working to deliver a single cause. And sure, there's arguments and disagreements, or there's the process works itself out. But in the end, the idea that every person on that project has a role in creating something and something to teach you and a real prominence in being there. That's really my biggest lesson, and it applies to life in general.
Yeah.
It's not just about a construction site. It's like there's something to learn from everyone. Just listen.
You just made me think of a story. My first ever project, right out of college. I'm in the field. It's whatever, probably assistant project manager, assistant super, something like that. And I forget the exact work, but there was a mason on site, right? And he was showing me a lot of stuff. Like this guy was very bright. and they started putting something together, right? And I was like, "Hey, that doesn't match the detail." And he's like, "Well, if this doesn't match the detail's wrong because this is how you need to do it in this instance." And I'm like, "Well, like, an engineer signed off on this, and on the other side, I have, like, you just kinda telling me it's wrong." And sure enough, like, we wrote up the RFI because I said, you know, "Hey, we just wanna confirm that this is a detail," and the engineer was wrong, right? And
Yep.
so I learned very early because that was, like, my first project, and early on the project, like, everybody on the team has something to offer, and don't discount anybody just because they have an idea. And we live with that philosophy, like, in the company. We very much, like, I call it, it's not just me, but my business coach, he's got this, no bad ideas, right? And it's like, "Hey, if you think something, like, don't be afraid to say, because there's no bad ideas here. Worst case is we're gonna iterate off that idea, but it will probably become something better. But if you don't share, we will never know, right? And if you're not open to hearing, you're never gonna be able to improve."
I think the greatest professional lesson that I've learned in the 25 years since I'm working full time is that you are not always right and you don't know everything. And that sometimes you just gotta listen and just learn. That's yeah, certainly important.
Very cool. So, let's jump a little bit to like the influence of real estate development on the actual like ecosystem, right? Like technology and innovation, and talk to us a little bit about that. I know some of your projects have like are very closely tied to technology.
Yeah. So as recently as the last couple of years, we developed uh Zero Irving, which is
Yep.
on 14th Street in Irving, here in Manhattan. And that project was the first project I would say that really the entire program was conceived from day one as a response to an RFP to really tie so closely to the tech ecosystem.
Yep.
Uh, and the idea behind the building was it actually was a vertically integrated ecosystem too unto itself that then tied to the broader kind of tech environment, tech market. What we learned really quickly is that tech is everything. Every industry is tech. You can tap tech onto there's fintech, construction tech. Every industry becomes a technology industry with just the teching of that word on there. And it's not just lip service at that point. It really technology has become so relevant in every industry that we work with and that we affect that it really does all tie back to this one kind of mission. So Zero Irving though it was an RFP through the city of New York it was this really amorphous kind of high aspirational goal of create an incubator for 21st century jobs. And there was nothing else about the program. And this was the first project also where we were able to bring this idea of you can do well and good at the same time. And what we started with was a partnership with an organization and it was a facility at the time. This was all pre-COVID when we were doing this proposal, Civic Hall. And Civic Hall was this kind of civic tech focused networking facility organization that really brought individuals that were looking to leverage technology in the civic world together. And I used to refer to it as like a university club for civic tech minded people. It was a place where all these different crazy ideas were all coming together and they were all collaborating to try to build each other's platforms. And we started with this as a way to bring digital skills training to the building. Because everything starts with education and training. So the idea was we actually anchored the building, the first 7 floors, with Civic Hall, which has since been purchased by FedCap. And FedCap's an international workforce training organization. But the idea was that Civic Hall, usually these tech training, digital skills training operators can't afford to be in the center of the city. And Union Square is the center of New York City life. If you look at it on a map, if you look at it, how transit impacts it, it's all like, you can't get a better transit hub. And usually these organizations are forced to go to the outer boroughs as far out as possible because it's just too expensive to operate. So what we worked with City Hall is to put together this um, structure where they were licensing out classroom space. They were putting in the initial capital to build out the classrooms, build out the best in class digital skills training facility. They were buying all of the equipment, and then they were going to license the classrooms for partnerships with these different organizations, both not for profit and for profit, to operate their curriculums and their programs in Union Square. Because then these organizations didn't have to pay rent. They didn't have to pay for downtime on the facilities. They were only paying for the time they needed to fill the classroom, and they didn't have to pay for the infrastructure. The infrastructure was being covered by Civic Hall. So we were actually able to execute this. And the bottom 7 floors of Zero Irving are this fully functioning digital skills training facility now. And Civic Hall and FedCap have these amazing partnerships with LaGuardia Community College, the data school. There's countless, there's tons of them. And it actually came to life, which was so cool. And then the next piece of that was the building is 21 stories tall. The next piece of that was this idea that companies, as they grow out of these traditional co-working spaces, they need office space, but the typical barriers to those office spaces prohibit them from getting office space in New York City, whether it be long-term lease requirements and huge security deposit requirements, build out expenses. So we created what we called the step-up office space. And it wasn't your traditional co-working space. These were traditional leases, but they were shorter term leases with renewal potential, and they had limited security deposits, and they had a higher contribution for build out work to allow these companies to get into real office space and be able to build to that next step, get their next series of funding and have a real presence here in New York City. And then up above that, we had our traditional Class A office space that was operating. And if you were in these 2 different spaces, the step-up office space or just the traditional office space, you would have no idea. It would be completely seamless between the 2 uses. It was just in the leasing structure, which allowed these step-up office companies to operate like some real, they were operating like the big boys. They were operating like they were fully developed companies, and gave them a real presence and gave them an opportunity to hire from Civic Hall. And then we actually saw the ecosystem work. There was a step up where people were being hired into these step up office companies, and then beyond into the larger organizations that leased out the floors above. So, and there was a direct tie. We were Wired Score Platinum. We were LEED Gold. We provided all the things that the tech tenants were looking for to create this really tech-focused development. But it was just really good planning. Like, the idea was that it was really well thought out. It really worked together. The construction was amazing. It was actually, we built it through COVID and delivered it right, in 2021, our first tenant moved in, which was a very interesting, but also very inspiring personal career experience. And the building is incredibly successful. We were 100% leased within a year and a half of delivery in the post-COVID world in New York City, when it was pretty hard to lease an office. So there is this direct tie. And the other interesting thing about that building was we were very targeted in how we designed it. The floor plates were very specific to the use. We had big open spaces. They worked really well to have, if you wanted some perimeter offices or conference rooms, it worked, but we had these great areas that had real light and air for open space and collaborative work environments. It had the flexibility to work for whatever kind of company, either early stage or late stage company, that would fit in there.
That's so great. And I love that concept. You said it earlier, and I was going to draw back to it, but you can do well and do good, right? Both, they're not mutually exclusive. And that's a great example. I've always heard great things about the project, so I really love the fire and passion you talk about it with. And I know it's particularly challenging because, like you said, it was basically during COVID, right? It sounds like you started negotiating before COVID, and then you were entering into leases, post COVID. Um, Tell us about that. Either maybe like lessons learned, or like has that changed? Like, how do you future proof your developments now, right? Because COVID was not something any of us could have anticipated.
We it was an interesting experience for us, as it was for everyone, but it really, um, it did actually, it was a bit of a confidence builder for us because what we discovered really quickly was that we have always really focused on, as I mentioned, design, and our design decisions are very much driven by just what is right for the building, what is right for the program. So what we found when we started going through the, 2020 hits, we were at, when March of 2020 hit, we were at the fifth floor of concrete. You we were pouring up to 21. No one knew what the world was going to bring in. And whenever we were closed down on that site for 30 days, because we were able to get back up and running. One of the highlights of my personal career was actually that first day where we were back in construction. I was there on site. And it was just there was this camaraderie that never existed on a construction site. It lasted for a little while, uh, but it was like the coolest experience of my life on a construction site. But we started going through the post-COVID checklist, or like how you were responding to COVID. And we started finding that the things that were being published as good design practices in a post-COVID world were things that we had incorporated. For instance, in that building, it always drove us crazy that in a commercial office building, you don't control your own HVAC.
Yeah.
And, you pay for overtime AC and all those issues that come along with that. The reality is in a pre-COVID and a post-COVID world, the traditional work hours are not followed anymore. So that idea of overtime AC never made any sense to us. People should be able to go into their office and feel comfortable whenever they want to get work done. So we had designed that building with individual HVAC VRF systems on every floor to begin with. COVID hits and everyone's talking about, the mixing of air between tenants. I'm like, wow, this works. We have individual HVAC systems already. We had already designed all the bathrooms with touchless fixtures because they were water saving fixtures. They were just the right way to go. The materials that we had chosen, we're always very focused on the operation of the properties as well. Even if we're not operating them in the end, we have our concept, our ethos is really that we should be able to go back to any of the developments that we've been involved in and feel proud about it and be part of it. So durability and surface wear, all these things that came with touch surfaces, all these things that came about after COVID were already integrated into our design. So it was a real confidence builder that we should continue to focus on what we've been doing right. Obviously learn. There's always an opportunity to learn. There's always an opportunity to do things better. But I think what we learned was also keep doing what we believe in, keep doing what we know is right for a project, tweak the details, but keep doing it. And that was a big learning experience for us.
I mean, validation is a wonderful feeling.
It is. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it is nice.
So we talked a lot about the positives, but obviously there's challenges too. And so tell us a little bit about like how have you handled criticism on developments, and like behind the scenes, if you can give us a peek into what is it really like when you enter into, I don't know if you consider that a public-private partnership, but right, like whenever you do something private but governmentally funded, like give us the behind the scenes and some criticisms and challenges, and how does that all work?
Honestly, every project has its stakeholders, right? And working with those stakeholders, whether it's government, local community, tenants, potential residents, sales teams, there's always voices in the room. And those voices are really important to the development process. We've lived by this idea that we should be able to return to the projects that we're involved in. So it's always been very important for us to build and maintain relationships in the locations that we're working on. Yeah, I recently had a project where we're discussing with the current owners of the project, the property. It's an international site in the Caribbean, and their advisor said to me, before you get in the room with them, just want to make sure, never say, "Oh, you've built on this island, so you can build on this island. It's no problem." And I said, I can promise you I'm never going to say that, because every location is completely its own animal. And our mission should be to go into any location that we're going to work in, whether it's international or domestic here or here in New York City, be able to meet with the stakeholders, tell them what we're going to do in a very honest and open way, and work through whatever issues we might have together. There will be, every project will have its difficult interactions, because there's always going to be those opinions. I find it very easy to have those conversations when I truly believe in the project or the program that we're trying to deliver. In the case of 14th Street, we were delivering something that was indisputably better than the appliance store that was there for the 30 years before that, and that we could feel really good about the program there. So yeah, I don't know if we went through a zoning change there through the ULURP process. I don't know if that ULURP process, I would have felt as comfortable speaking out in front of city council or whoever if we were looking to do luxury housing there. It just wasn't the right site, the right program for it. But we knew that what we were delivering was the right program. I also always say to everyone involved in our projects, the truth is so much better than what people are imagining. It's people's imaginations are unbelievable. And what if you're not transparent about the full story, about the full program, about what you're trying to do, about the goods and the bads. I mean, there's pros and cons to every project, and there's going to be inconvenience in development. It's just part of it. If you're not fully transparent, the stories and thoughts that the opponents have in their head are so much worse than the reality. So I always take the approach, it's just so much easier to be forthright, be transparent, share the information, and work through the issues. And I think that applies to public projects, it applies to private projects, and it certainly applies to public-private development.
I love that concept in general, because it's hard to frame everything all into one bucket, right? Every project has its own unique characteristics. But listening to stakeholders, and I think particularly that whole, like, if you don't tell them, whatever they're thinking in their head is 100 times worse. Like, it's easier to explain yourself than to leave it to their imagination.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So a part of this show is always about, like, the next generation. So I'm going to shift gears to that now. And I want to ask you, what is a skill, right, you think either in school or early career professionals should be looking at and developing right now, right? Like, what is RAL trying to hire in the next 10 years that maybe you're not trying to hire immediately right now?
It's funny because my son being 15, this is a dinner
Yeah,
conversation.
there
in
you
our
go.
house. This conversation has happened more than once in the last week. So really, I am a paper person still, believe it or not. I like to review things. I print a lot. I like to review it and mark it up with markers. I'm the worst sketcher on the planet. So it's not that I can draw better there, but it does give me the ability to, for some reason, I understand it better when I'm seeing it on paper and I can doodle or whatever. But I do think their technology is becoming more and more important, but I would say very specific technology. Like, if you know it, in particular with the real estate industry, there are certain technologies out there. If you know how to use AI, for instance, if you understand that it's all in the prompt. I know you
Yeah.
and I have had this
Yeah.
conversation several times, but I'm starting to play around with things like that, and I'm amazed by what it can produce for me, not as not as an extension of Google and not as the answer to anything, but as a means to an end. Even putting together templates for me, putting together forms of documents, how I might approach something, using it as a sounding board. I think that's a really important technology. Uh, I am I struggle with the effectiveness of BIM modeling yet still. I am still a believer that BIM has definitely damaged the architectural and engineering world in the production of a set of drawings. So I'm less concerned with that, more concerned about people knowing what needs to be on a drawing and what that drawing needs to convey. So I think that's a really important skill going into the real estate world. Being able to, if you're planning on being on the engineering or architectural side, being able to produce a document that has relevant information isn't just a slice of a model, but really conveys something. And then if you're on the on less of the drafting side, understanding, being on the in person, being able to understand and read drawings, I think is a skill that is really lost. You know, taking the sets of drawings, and one of my earlier roles here at RAL when I was in high school was, making prints, and that process of making prints and understanding sheet sizes and what's on the sheets and how to put together a set, how to slip sheet and conform a set of drawings. I think that's lost, and I think it's a really relevant uh, understanding. It gives you this very deep understanding of the documents that you don't get looking at drawings on a screen, and that might be me aging myself, but there's definitely something missing there. Uh, I think that's a real skill going into it, and the other skill is really it's more of a personality skill, which is just come in, being able to speak to people, being able to form a relationship with people. I find is something that is really lost with the younger generation. So much is done via text. Pick up the phone, have that ability to really form a relationship with someone, because it's that real relationship that's going to build or sustain your business.
I love it. All great advice for the next generation. I think AI certainly taking over the world, but it's AI in conjunction with the other things you said, those soft skills, right? Picking up the phone, build a relationship. Like, yes, it can be a tool. And I like the way you put it. It's a means to an end, but it's not the end, right? Like, it is just there to support you. Before we jump to the lightning round, I want to ask you, do you have, and that was a lot of good advice. So maybe like, is there a quote or a mantra you subscribe to or like kind of live your life by?
I do. I go back to the statement of there's something to learn from everyone. I use that a lot, and I really, just throughout life, I really do. I try not to. Um, I'm rarely adversarial at all. Yeah, even in the worst of situations, it doesn't get you anywhere. So digest it. I actually also often use here in the office facts without emotion. Give me the facts. I don't need to know how you feel about it. Neither does the client. Pure facts will get us to a resolution much quicker than the emotion that's attached to it.
Very nice. Let's jump into this lightning round. So, fast fire questions. Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, all right. I joke around with the kids that I am Colorado cool. I don't think they think I'm cool at all, but my favorite place to be, and it's ironic that it's also a work destination for me, is the mountains in Colorado. I just feel at home. It feels comfortable, and I'm one with the mountains out there. So that,
You might
yeah,
have wished that into existence, right? There might be a reason that it's a work destination.
I'm working on it.
So, and I actually know the answer to this one, but I'll ask you anyway. Go-to morning, coffee, tea, iced coffee, water. What's your go-to morning drink?
A lot of coffee, but it starts with hot and usually progresses to cold.
Um, Favorite meal?
Ooh. chili cheese dogs.
Cool. And is there a particular spot or?
No, and it was a lot more fun when I used to be able to eat gluten, but since that came about, it's just kind of like, no, my father went to University of Cincinnati, which is like a chili city. So we grew up eating chili, and my mom would make chili dogs for dinner, and it's it's continued to be a go-to for me.
That's awesome. Well, I do remember we had those gluten-free pretzels. I forget what brand. Those were amazing though. I mean, even though,
They are gluten-free pretzels. They have figured out gluten-free pretzels.
but not so much hot
The
dogs
gluten-free
or-
buns are still they're a little they tend to not maintain their structure.
And then this is a two-parter. So I'm gonna ask you music or movies.
Okay. Um ooh. Total it's mood driven. Well,
Okay.
let's go movies.
All right. And then so within movies, do you have a favorite movie?
I do. I have two favorite movies.
All right. We want to hear them both.
In the drama action world, it would be Goodfellas.
Great movie.
And I can listen to that movie over and over. I can have it on the TV on in my office and just as background noise to me. And in the comedy world, Tommy Boy.
Great movie.
It's just a go-to. It just makes you feel good.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have today. So, Spence, any parting words before I sign off the audience?
No, I'm glad you were so persistent. I'm very excited to have done this, and it's great to catch up.
No, it was a lot of fun. I love chatting with you, and your passion just it always comes through whenever I talk to you. I know you love the work you do, and I do too. I just love this industry. I think
Yeah.
different than a lot of other industries. Like what we produce is tangible. People experience it. People like it helps them live, helps them work, helps them travel. Right? Like you can talk about myriad
Yeah.
different things that we allow people to do. So I love it, and I know you do too. All right. Well, with that, that's all the time we have for today. We'll include links to resources mentioned in today's shows in our notes. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and keep an eye out for our next episode.
Thanks so much.
This episode is brought to you by Infinite Consulting Corp., your go-to firm for MBE certified project and construction management consulting. Discover how Infinite can help you build a better future at infiniteconsultingcorp.com.